Hi everyone. We were studying the diversity, and within the diversity, there are few important concepts. The one of them is what we call as an ecotone. So, I think before defining the ecotone, uh, just have a look at this diagram. Suppose this is one ecosystem, this is another ecosystem. Now, uh, suppose this is a species A, this is species B, this is species C, right? There are a lot of them, A, B, C, A, B, C, something like that, right? Similarly, here also we have a species like A, B, C, A, B, C. Okay, so now if you see the alpha diversity of both of them, they are 3 and 3, right? Now, when these ecosystem E1, E2, this is a transition area between the two ecosystems. Now this transition area, what will generally happen that because of certain environmental conditions, because of the merging of the two ecosystem, there will be certain unique conditions will develop. And because of such unique conditions, there will be not only just A, B, C, there will be also like D, E, F, G, H, I. So it means like if there are three species here and the 3 here, it can be possibly the 9 species can be found in such transitional area. Now this transitional area, or we can say a transitional boundary between two adjacent ecosystems, is called as ecotone. Now always remember, this transitional area in the ecotone, it will always have the higher diversity, it will always have rich species, which will basically separate these two ecosystems. They have the high biological diversity as compared to the adjacent communities. So this is what the ecotone means. Now similar to this thing, the concept of the whole scenario here, where we can have, we have said that there can be a more diversities. This phenomena is what we call as the edge effect, right? So the edge effect is wherever the two ecosystems overlap, the overlapping area supports species from both of them plus another species that is only found in the overlapping area. And this whole procedure is what we call as the edge effect. So this basically, you might be thinking that why suddenly this 3 here is 9. So this occurs because the resources of both the ecosystem can be accessed in the one place. That is one of the reasons. So let's also write the reasons. Maybe because of the resources of both the ecosystem can be accessed at one place. Second thing can be the conditions like air temperature can be the one of them, or the humidity can be one of them, soil moisture can be one of them, etc. Moreover, the variations in the conditions at the edge can create a favorable microclimates which can support a unique species. So we can say that yes, there can be a microclimates also. Apart from that, the increased availability of light to plants along the edges allow more plants to be supported and increase the productivity. For example, like if this is basically a forest area and this is a grassland area, so when two of them meet, so there will be it won't be so many forested, there won't be so many trees, but at the grassland at the same time, so more light are available in these areas. So yes, we can say that it creates its own microclimate, and more importantly, it has more availability of light. More importantly, the ecosystem edges and the borders, they act as a energy nets, or which capture the massive movement of material, nutrients, energy across their boundaries. Leaves and soils are blown in the wind against barriers, their shells wash up on the beach, etc., something like that. So all these things basically tell us the importance of the the ecotone and the edge effect. Now there is another concept what we call as the Ecad. Now the Ecad are basically, in very layman terms, these are the organism whose form has been affected by its environment. So you can say that uh, in this example itself, there are certain organisms like example G, H and I. So these are basically the genetically they are similar, but the morphological characteristics of each and every one of them are different. So they are the new diversity of species have been obtained. Now this new diversity is what we call as the Ecad. So we can say that Ecad they are genetically similar, but morphologically they are different. So they are basically the induced variations. This is what the Ecad means. Similarly, we have a concept of the ecotype. Now, ecotype is the population or the ecological race, a population or race, ecological race, most importantly within a species, right, which has been adapted to specific environmental conditions. This is what the ecotypes means. So they are genetically fixed, but they're dissimilar. Examples can be, uh, chicklets. Yes, Cichlids. The chicklets were basically the fishes. They were brought to the Tanzania lake in Africa from Australia and the US. So they thought that they were basically the ornamental fishes during the British time. They introduced it to the Tanzania lake, but now they are so dominant and they have destroyed the native species. So they have evolved themselves as per the environmental conditions. So it can be the example of the ecotype. Similarly, we also have something called the dominant species. So dominant species. So dominant species are the most numerous species. So they play a very critical role uh, in the energy transfer. They have their own biomass. So this is what it is. I hope you got it. And the next is also what we call as a keystone species. So the keystone species are basically the, you know, they what we say. So if I make a pyramid, so there are certain species over which all these species rely. So this is what the keystone species means, that if we remove this thing, many other species will die. So many species is directly or indirectly related to those species, and such species are called the keystone species. For example, like beavers are there, because beavers, beavers dam, the beavers are capable of making a dam, and these are also called the excellent carpenters. Even the lion-tailed macaque, which is basically endangered, they are found in the Karnataka. They are also the one example of the keystone species. So this is what the basic things are. And also there's a one more thing what we call as a habitat. So habitat is basically an address of an organism, you can say, the place where the organism is found naturally. So that's what the habitat means. Okay, and there's one more concept. It's called an ecological niche. Let me also discuss that. So we have discussed habitat. Habitat is was basically an address of an organism, or the place where organisms are found naturally. Found naturally. Similarly, we have a niche that's called the ecological niche. So ecological role, it means the role that an organism play in its habitat. How can I explain this thing further? For example, like you or this is your place, right? Now no one else can occupy this place. This is where you need, where you are most dominant in. So this whole area is what we call as a niche. So it's a place where the organisms are basically a role that an organism plays. It is ecologically equivalent as well as the group of species which have similar nature but with different ecosystem. Like the kangaroos are there. The kangaroos are found mostly in the Australia itself because of the special environmental conditions, and they are the keystone species in the Australia. So they have their own niche, that is their own area, right? So this is what the niche means. And apart from that, there is also a word which is called the guild. The guild are basically the group of species with comparable ecological role. So the group of species with comparable ecological role. Similarly, there is also one more word which you need to know, is that a fundamental niche. Fundamental niche is basically a total size or total dimension of the niche of the species in its habitat. Means mm, if this is a niche of a one particular organism, so what is basically this dimension? What is an area of this whole thing? That is what the fundamental niche means. Similarly, we have also a concept called the ecological niche. Ecological niche is basically the same concept as above, what is the dimension of whole this thing, but it is same concept as previous one, but the only difference is that there will be a presence of another competitor, right? So in the presence of the another competitor, and I'm finding the dimension of that particular organism, this is what we call as an ecological niche. So we can say that both of them are equal only when there is no competitor. Otherwise, if there's a competitor, then that's called the ecological niche. So coexistence of many organisms, the competitive species in the given habitat, it is possible because of different niche or because of the niche partitioning. So basically, in very short and the layman terms, that niche is occupation of an organism. What does an organism do? That's what the niche is. So I hope I have made few of the points very clear. So let's jump to the next chapter.